What we're going to do now, though, is we've just been dipping into some very complicated, very nuanced stuff and hopefully producing some new insight for everybody. But now we're going to go to a real give me.
Oh, yes.
And this is this week's.
This was beautiful.
Yeah, this was beautiful. This is to remind you, as much as liberals can be really fucking annoying, they're not the primary enemy. And I do mean enemy. I said, as I always set this up, Trevor, I said last year that Robbie Mook, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, needed to be locked in a pyramid. And people were curious about other people that I thought should be locked in a pyramid. So on this week's Pyramid Edition, and I think, can we bed the music underneath this ad, Matt? I can't play this. Okay, that's fine. Let's just play this ad and we'll get... So Ben Shapiro, whose popularity and interest is a sign, and people's interest in him is a sign of a civilization. Ironically, Ben Shapiro's popularity makes me talk like Ben Shapiro. We're a society in decline, and we're losing our way. There's a crisis of masculinity, and there's a crisis of critical thinking.
He sounded like that scientist on The Simpsons.
Yes, he's a little overgrown bar mitzvah boy who kind of travels around the country and coins brilliant terms like facts don't care about your feelings, and basically kind of does a sort of slightly softened version of Breitbartism because he probably felt really uncomfortable with the, I could only imagine, profoundly overt anti-Semitism that happens when, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, maybe like, I don't know, Steve Bannon was mind-blowingly drunk and ranting and raving in the office in cargo shorts with his massive grotesque gut was spilling over. So now, I'm sorry, I'm giving you a lot of unpleasant images. So anyways, on this show today for Columbus Day, which happened yesterday, and many people have taken to calling Indigenous Peoples Day, and the reality is that, again, addition, subtraction. I would never take off a day of work, a paid vacation for the American worker, so day off has to stay, but we need to not honor a guy who was a colonialist who engaged in mass murder and theft. And that seems pretty basic. It doesn't require any romantic narrative about Native American societies. It just requires that you have basic historical awareness and empathy, which, of course, Ben Shapiro and his website do not. And what's the name of the website, Matt? Do you know? Is it the Daily Wire or some bullshit like that?
Yeah, it's the Daily Wire, not that we should plug it.
Yeah, well, here is the video that the Daily Wire thought that we should plug. They will go in the pyramid. I'm sure that Ben Shapiro, unfortunately, will pop his little head back up again. They put this video out, and I'll give a brief summary of it after, but this is primarily visual. So if you're listening to this on iTunes or not, well, if you're on Patreon, you should be watching it.
And the summary doesn't do justice, because when you see it, it's really...
Honestly, I'll give a 10-second summary of this, but if you're listening on iTunes, just look it up.
The sound effects will sort of cue how grotesque this animation actually is.
Truly grotesque. So basically, the opening of the video is one incredibly stereotypical looking tribe sitting in front of a teepee. Then another group that looks exactly like them shows up, murders them, beheads them, and engages in cannibalism, which was definitely not a universal practice. This the first sort of fact check here. Then Columbus showed up, and Columbus also, I mean, not to get really nitpicky here, but apparently was white. As well,
and a pilgrim,
kind of funny, and a pilgrim, right? Of course, versus coming from Spain. He shows them a cow, how to eat with a knife and fork, and a couple of other technological inventions, and they're super impressed by it. They're so soothed by these new inventions that they don't behead him. And then And then after that, corn apparently grows. Apparently, corn was not
maize
growing.
has been around for 7,000 years.
Yeah, there's definitely no indigenous societies in this part of the world that had any relationship with corn or its cultivation before Columbus, right?
Yeah, there was no maize.
No maize at all. And then there is cities and everything is great. And then before Columbus, there was tomahawks, dream catchers, and cannibalism. And then after Columbus, there was The Simpsons and cities and books and women's suffrage, which, I mean, I guess credit where credit is due. I'm not sure that people like Ben Shapiro are into women's suffrage. But that is the ad. Now, if we can start with the music, Matt, I first want to just read. These are a couple of excerpts that David Slavic has put together for me of Columbus's diaries, which he actually wrote upon his meeting with... What is that?
That's a different kind.
It's fine. Okay. This is Columbus. They, as in the Native Americans that he encountered, brought us parrots and balls of cotton and spears and many other things, which they exchanged for glass beads and hawks' bells. They willingly traded everything they owned. They were well built with good bodies and handsome features. They did not bear arms and did not know them. For I showed them a sword, and they took it by the edge and cut themselves out of ignorance. They have no iron. Their spears are made of cane. They would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want. As soon as I arrived in the Indias, of course he thought he was in India, on the first island which I found, I took some of the natives by force in order that they might learn and might give them information of whatever there is in these parts. And finally, I'm just going to read the third part. Endless testimonies prove the mild and pacific temperament of the natives, but our work was to exaggerate, ravage, kill, mangle, and destroy. Small wonder, then, if they tried to kill one of us now and then. The admiral, it is true, was blind, as those who came after him, and he was anxious to please the king, that he committed irreparable crimes against the Indians. So apparently, after he showed them a cow and dressed like a pilgrim and how to eat with a knife and fork, he engaged in mass murder after admitting himself that they were basically diplomatic and open to visitors.
And he fed the chiefs to his dogs, which is something you can look up, which
right.
You know is pretty savage. Like, it's kind of weird that they're calling people savages, and it's
a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really savage thing to do. And you know what I find really weird about that whole thing is the value system that it kind of assumes, because it just kind of assumes that you think from the perspective of someone like Ben Shapiro. Cause I'm like, who is this going to convince? Because, okay, if you told somebody, hey, I'll give you a knife and a fork and a cow, but I'm going to wipe out your whole family.
Yeah.
Isn't that a net win? No one's going to say yeah, but it just assumes that you're going to imagine yourself on the arrival side of it. And the other thing I find interesting is, first,
I have no doubt that the prime audience of this website and Ben Shapiro were on the arrival side of it, although not in good enough shape to do a boat trip across the world.
But this is what I find interesting. When the people who watch a Ben Shapiro movie, I mean, a thing like that, or follow his site, if they watch a movie like Independence Day or War of the Worlds, where white people are getting annihilated by superior aliens with superior technology, like, do they watch those movies and think, you know what, those white people look like me, but those aliens are superior technology? After they're done wiping everyone out in this movie, they're probably gonna, set up some pretty good stuff for themselves,
right,
in America. It's a net win for, boo that the Earthlings won.
The Koch brothers will truly have succeeded when a kid goes to the movie and goes, well, it's all part of innovation.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to liquidate me. I support that.
They were, the Martians were just disrupting.
The Martians were very disruptive. Ben Shapiro, though, I have to say, is totally cucked out.
Yeah.
I was uncomfortable with the video, but in the interest of giving my employees the benefit of the doubt, in the interest of defending satire more broadly, I decided to leave it up. He then said the decision was a mistake. On Monday, while on vacation, how many fucking caveats can this guy have? I was made aware of a satirical video that went up on the Daily Wire's Facebook page and Twitter without my input or approval regarding Columbus Day. I was uncomfortable with the video, but in the interest of giving my employees the benefit of the doubt, in the interest of defending satire more broadly, I decided to leave the video up. It was a mistake, and I apologize for it fully. After 24 hours of not sleeping, I decided I couldn't live with the video being left up in my name. Yes, the video was satire. In my opinion, it was bad satire. It did not fulfill my editorial guidelines. It skipped over, wow, look at him getting all SJW here. It skipped over the grave injustices visited upon the Native Americans and engaged in broad-based stereotyping. The video has been removed. You know what's amazing is that these idiots like Ben Shapiro have work on such depth of historical illiteracy and bigotry that he's revealing that he knows the basics of this history here, but he's been out working to make sure that there's an army of mouth-breathing morons that don't know the history, so that I bet that those employees literally think that that's how it went down, and that's why it's funny.
Oh, I'm sure. And what's interesting is, and this is why I hate the whole alt-right thing, because the alt-right thing I think is actually even worse than the alt-right, because in a perverse way, there's almost a respect I can have for Richard Spencer for at least just being who he is and being open about it. But people like Gavin McInnes and this guy, they have this kind of weird thing where they say in the black community, don't throw stones and hide your hand. And that's like what they do. It's the most weaselly thing, because he knows you can't unring a bell.
Well, you're welcome for teaching you how to throw stones.
It's like that Auerbach guy in the Slate thing, really. Like he was completely sniveling and denying it, and having people like say, "How dare you libel me?" saying I'm connected with Milo, and all along,
all along he was leaking the video. So Ben Shapiro, and I believe we have a new graphic from our friends at the Institute for Progressive Memetics. Ben Shapiro, who I'm sure we'll be hearing from again, because for some reason people are interested in a guy who I think like rode his way to fame, kind of like writing books about why he didn't masturbate when he was a teenager or something. For some reason, this is interesting to people in 2017. Go figure. Ben Shapiro for this week. And do we have the video ready, Matt? For this week, Ben Shapiro, Trevor, and I are engaging in our own barbaric practice and our own form of cultural appropriation. Really, we're locking you in the pyramid. Here it is. Bye, little Benny.
I want to say one last thing about that video.
Go ahead, man.
Is it me? Am I the only one? Or did the before look way cooler? Like when they turned to like gray buildings and cars and smog, I was like, the arrival looked actually pretty nice. They're walking around like in half naked.
Well, dude, let me read again from this. Let's check this out. They brought us parrots and balls of cotton and spears and many other things, which they exchanged for glass beads and hawk bells. They willingly traded everything they owned. They were well built with good bodies and handsome features. They did not bear arms and did not know them. Sounds like a pretty relaxing lifestyle.
Yeah, I'd rather that than a factory.
Yeah.
Or 12 hours in a cubicle.
Yeah, shit. But I don't think Ben Shapiro would rather that than 12 hours.
Yeah. Well, because he'd probably not be on the top of the...
He would not be on the top of that hierarchy.
Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos